There's a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there and they're like, yeah, I'm grinding every day. I'm in the struggle zone, but they're not. They're just failing because they're not
Mm-hmm.
going in the right direction. You have to have a
Mm-hmm.
strategy.
What was a failure that came along as you've been on this journey that you want to share?
Your resume is kind of like a tombstone in the
Mm-hmm.
fact that the job begins on one day or the business and you exit it or move to another one on another day, but the real life happens in between. So you
Totally.
asked, I'm talking about these exits and making a pro basketball team. Well, you fail every day in that
Yeah.
process from start to end, but this is where the right mindset, the power of community, power of coaches like you that can help you not skip the struggle zone. You're going to
Mm-hmm.
struggle, and whatever you're doing, you try to
Absolutely.
grow, has to be struggle to grow, right? It's like going to the gym, you break down the muscle,
Mm-hmm.
comes back stronger. I mean, that's the life of an entrepreneur. So really it's just failing every day, but being able to grow from failure. The way I overcome it is surrounding myself with great people, and it's not a quantity of people, it's quality.
All right, Adam, how you doing? Good to see you.
Oh, I'm doing perfect, just like we were talking before we came live. So
Yeah. We're
amazing.
like,
Life
wait,
is
we
so
should
good.
record this. We should
Yeah.
record this. Why are we just chatting off the record? Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Well, I'm really, really excited to have you here and to get to know you better. Obviously, like we have connected via LinkedIn, and now I'm a member of your community that you're building, the House of Bricks. So I'm very excited, though, to learn more about you because I really only know the tip of the iceberg. So welcome.
Well, I thank you for having me. And in our couple of conversations, I know we're going to do great things together. So thanks for
Yeah.
joining our community. It's not the Adam House Show; it is the House of Bricks community. And I would have named it that if God didn't just give me the perfect last name to build a community.
Oh,
So
it's awesome. Yeah.
it really is fitting, and obviously wouldn't have it without the community members. We started with 4 or 5, and I'll tell you a funny story, which is got all excited, got 7, 8 people signed up for my community, and our first community call, no one showed up.
Oh,
So it is not
no.
the field of dreams, but I recorded it anyway. It was just our team on the call, and I
Uh-huh.
said we are going to act as if right now.
Yes.
So I was like, "Welcome to the House of Bricks community," and so
Yeah.
I saved that just for a year from now when we've
Mhm.
got 100 or 200 people in the community, so I can
Mhm.
encourage other people. Like, you got to just believe. You got to take the first step.
Yes. I love that. And I love that you specifically just said act as if, because I feel like that is just how I'm moving through life right now and how I have been for the last few months. Cause I know where I'm going and I'm just acting like I'm already there.
No one's ever there. The only
Yeah.
place you arrive in life is the cemetery.
Oh,
Okay, that's
Jesus.
it. I know that's kind of dark, but it's
Yeah, a
also
little bit.
motivating, right?
It
It's
is
motivating.
motivating.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's so fun. I mean, I saw some statistic the other day and I can't remember if it was, I think it said by 2035. So I could have the date wrong. It could be somewhere between 2030 and 2035. But regardless, it's within the next 5 to 10 years, which is, as we know, time is absolutely flying by. So it's going to be here in the blink of an eye, regardless of when it is. But it said something about that, like 50% of people will be doing their own thing by that point. And I thought that that was so fascinating to think about that and just the way that the world has shifted as far as like remote work goes, as far as entrepreneurship goes, as far as people doing multiple different things to build their professional lives and their personal brands and their careers. Whereas
Yeah.
if you think like even as early as, I mean, I got out of college in the year 2000. And back then it was like you get out of college, you get a job and
Yep.
that's your job. It's not like, oh, and I do this, and I have a podcast, and I do that, and I do this. Whereas now it's like people are like, oh my God, look at me. I'm a jack of all trades and all these cool things.
So I think statistics that far out are often corrected by
Oh, for
reality.
sure. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, there's always human natures to swing from one side of the pendulum to the other, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then we get somewhere in the middle that's balanced. Congratulations on graduating college. I dropped out after my freshman year. So congrats to
Thanks.
you. Big
Thank you.
accomplishment. And so, yeah, I just think there'll be a balancing out of it. I think the hybrid work thing.
Mhm.
It's already starting to balance out. Number one,
Yeah.
people need work-life separation.
Yeah,
Even with our
totally.
phones, we're on social media all the time, home, work, car, whatever. So
Mhm.
I think people will kind of shift to more balance. And then the second reason, obviously, people are going back to work is these big companies are paying office
God,
leases. Like we've
I
got this
know.
50,000 square foot office and no one's in
And
here.
nobody's in it.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so crazy to me. Like my first job out of college was doing commercial real estate. So I think about that so often when I'm in different big cities, just thinking like how much of that space is just sitting there and
Yeah.
what types of leases these businesses are tied into. Because you don't sign an office lease usually for like 1 year. It's like
No.
10, 15, 20 years. And whoa.
Yeah. It's empty money. And then they don't feel like they're productive either when they're not in the office because they can't see them. But
Yeah.
I think people work more remote than they do in the office. Not
Mhm.
effectively, but they're plugged in more.
Yeah, I know. I do feel like, well, I mean, even back in the day, even before everything like smartphones, I mean, remember you would close your computer and be like, well, I'll see my email in the morning because
Yeah.
that was it.
Or check your voicemail in the morning.
Oh
My
my
first company
God.
was a
Yes.
marketing, direct marketing company. And I like couldn't wait to get into the office to see if I had a voicemail from a prospect. Hey, Adam,
Mm-hmm.
it's Tom. Give me a call. I'm ready to order. I
Yeah.
was like, yeah,
Yeah.
I got a voice.
I know that's so funny. I've joked with my friends before because, like, I feel like we're like the generation that, we didn't have smartphones until we were in college or after college. Whereas, like, all the younger kids now, it's like, oh, I got my first like iPhone when I was 13. And I'm like, okay, that was unheard of.
Right.
But like, I was like, oh, but you girls will never know the feeling of like getting home from school and like clicking play on the answering machine to see if the
Right.
boy you like called,
Yeah. Or when you got a portable phone. I mean, that was big
Oh my
time.
God,
The
right?
cordless. I'd be like fighting
Totally.
over with my brother, you know,
Yes.
and he was older, so I get stuck on the one in the kitchen with the long,
The cord.
cord.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, what's up? And he had the portable in his room. So
Oh my God, so true. It's so true. Or when you would catch somebody like listening in on your call, like, hey, why are
yeah,
you listening? Like, get off the mom, I'm on the phone. Why is he
yeah,
listening?
yeah. All right,
Oh my gosh.
we're on a tangent.
Definitely on a tangent. So you mentioned your first company, and I know you've had several, and I know that they've been in all sorts of types of business. So how did your path to entrepreneurship begin?
So in high school, I had the honor of working for Dan Gilbert, who's the founder of Rocket Mortgage, Cleveland
Oh, right
Cavaliers. So I
on.
was an intern for him, and it
Hmm.
was my senior year, but it was like a crash course. And back then they had maybe 80, 90 employees.
Okay.
And he was just building, growing, casting vision, failing, growing. And we, in that environment, it was really like a Harvard MBA in entrepreneurship, like just
Oh,
seeing
cool.
how
Uh-huh.
he, ran things and led the team. So I went to college for a year, checked that out, decided it wasn't for me. Moved to South Florida with literally a couple $100 in my pocket. Started a direct marketing company. Turned that into a multi-million-dollar exit in 2007. After that,
Okay.
started a mobile technology company. We exited that for 30 times revenue. 18 months idea to exit. And then
Wow.
this is my favorite story outside of my wife and 4 sons
Uh-huh.
is at 32, my wife was like, well, you've been a CEO since you were 19. If you don't do something you love, you're going to regret it the rest of your life. And so I was like,
Hmm.
all right, well, I played basketball in high school, a year in college. Maybe I could make some minor league basketball team. And she's
Okay.
like, okay, whatever keeps you out of the house. Cause like for the 2 weeks I was home, I'm like,
Uh-huh.
I don't do anything. I just delegate. Right.
Oh, okay.
And
Uh-huh.
word of caution to any man out there, delegating to your wife is not a good
Yeah.
idea. It just comes right back at you. It's a boomerang. So
Hmm.
I'd come up with the things we should do in the house. And then I would say, all right, let's go get them done.
Here you
And
go.
so she's like, you need a job. I don't care if you work at Starbucks as a barista, pursue
Hmm.
professional basketball. So anyway, long story short, ended up training for 6 months, got invited to a combine in Dayton, Ohio. And there were 35, I call them kids. I mean, these are guys just graduating college, mid
Yeah.
D1 major, mid major D1 teams. And of the 35 guys, I got invited. They picked 3 or 4 to come to a camp in Rochester, New York for the Rochester Razor Sharks. So I went to the
Okay.
camp and actually ended up making the team. So I called my wife. I said, "Great news! I made the team. The bad news is we're moving from Brookline, Massachusetts, which she had just spent those 6 months remodeling this 1920s house.
Oh
Her
my
touch on
gosh.
every ounce of the
Uh-huh.
house." And I said, "Well, I made the team, but we're moving to Rochester, New York." So she was a trooper, and we moved to Rochester, New York, and I played basketball for the Rochester Razor Sharks. And the owner of the team found out my business background, and he's like, "Adam,
Hmm.
what are you doing the rest of the day? Like, practice is only 2 hours, and the other guys
Yeah.
just go smoke weed and play Xbox,
Uh-huh.
And I'm like with my wife and 3 young sons at the time, and he's like, "Why don't you come in and help me run the team?" And so he made me CEO, co-owner, and I was also a player on the team. So I got to do that
Oh
for a
my
year, and
God.
then yeah, it was awesome. It was
That
awesome.
is amazing. I love it. So, were you the oldest guy on the team?
By far. Yeah, I was
By far.
32.
Okay.
Well, there was a veteran 2 years younger than me, but I
Hmm.
mean, he was a stud. He played at Notre Dame,
Uh-huh.
in the T League. Like he had been with the team for 8 years, like all-time leading scorer. So
Hmm.
it was him and I, and then a bunch of younger guys, right?
That sounds so fun. And
Yeah.
how cool that you made it. I mean, you must have been good.
I was good enough, and I think the
Yeah.
coach liked my leadership, and I worked
Hmm.
hard.
Hmm.
And they didn't give me minutes just because I was the CEO, so I had to
Yeah,
earn
yeah.
minutes. Got a couple, in the game and stuff, but it was fun. We made it to the finals and lost, which was
Nice.
disappointing, but
Uh-huh.
it was still a great run.
So it was just 1 year though. What'd you do after that? Or why'd you even stop? Why didn't you keep going?
I had to grow back up. I'm hanging out on like 8-hour bus rides with
Yeah.
guys
Oh
watching like
God.
Martin reruns. And I'm
Uh-huh.
like in the back reading the Wall Street Journal, and uh,
Oh my God. That's so
so
awesome.
had to grow up, and then started my healthcare analytics company. They actually went public a couple years ago, so started that in 2015. Did a
Hmm.
sales training company, and now I'm at the place where, and it takes a long time to get here, where my passion, which is helping entrepreneurs, being an entrepreneur first,
Hmm.
helping others. I've always been kind of a give first mindset guy, almost to
Hmm.
my own demise. Um, and then it's where your passion, or your passion and purpose, because I feel I went through all that for not just for me but to help other people,
Yeah.
became my profession. So
Okay.
started with a podcast just like you're doing.
Hmm.
People started reaching out like, "Hey, can you give me advice on my business?" I did it for free for a while, and then I was like,
Hmm.
"Well, I can turn this into a business." And I started offering advisory services, and then everyone couldn't afford my advisory services, so someone gave me the terrible idea of starting a community. So
Oh, okay, then that's how we met, and that's how
that's
we're
how we met.
here.
But now it's worth it. Now it's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I say that I love everyone in my community now, but it is, it's the most difficult thing to do to, get groups of people
Hmm.
together, provide value enough.
Yeah.
And it's not like they work for you. It's not like it's a job. They're paying, it's just like a membership. They
Hmm.
may show up, they may not.
Hmm.
They may help others, they may not. So, but we have a really good foundation. We've got, 60 members now.
Yeah.
And now that you have 60, the first 10 are the toughest, and it kind of gets easier
Hmm.
as the number gets bigger, because people are like, "Oh, wow, this is worth being a part of." So,
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's jump back a few years though, because you mentioned that went to college for 1 year. You were 19 years old. You said, like, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going to go down to Florida, have a few $100s, and then you made a business that sold for millions of dollars. So, like, where did that come from? Like, where did that drive come from? Like, how did you have that level of confidence to just go do that?
well, I wish it's either confidence or ignorance. So like right
Fair.
now, if I tried to start a business with $200, I probably wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
But I was 19, living in South Florida, had nothing to lose, right?
Hmm.
No family to worry about. As I mentioned, I played basketball. I think there's
Hmm.
a strong correlation between sports and
Teamwork.
business. I
Yep.
wanted to win. I'll figure it
Yep.
out. Little insane, driven mentality
Hmm.
and just ignorance. But
Yeah.
never gave up, and just, it was right time, right place. We were selling leads to mortgage companies.
Hmm.
Um, and so in 99 to 2007, it was like the
Yep.
refinance wave, right?
Yeah. I was in mortgage in 2005 and 2006, and it
You
was
were?
crazy town. Yeah. Hmm.
What company?
I was with a company that no longer exists. It
Of
was
course,
called
there's a lot of those.
yeah, it was called Long Beach Mortgage. It was Washington Mutual's wholesale subprime division.
Yeah, you probably bought
So
leads from me. I know
it
that company.
was very, I mean, it was like you basically just had to have a pulse and you could get a loan.
Yeah, 125%, no income verification.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no income, fixed for 2 years, then variable for 38. It's like, what? Like, it's
It's
so
going to
bad. Like,
cost you $8 million for this
yes.
$200,000 house.
Oh God, looking back on it, like I'm still friends with the guys that I worked with, and I'm like, you guys,
Yeah.
this was so bad. I
Yeah.
mean, so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was very fortunate in
Hmm.
selling it in May of 2007. So
Okay.
right before the
Perfect
collapse,
time. Yeah.
sold, and my business went,
Hmm.
to zero, but
Yeah,
I
I bet.
sold it. So
But you had sold it totally. So, do you come from, I mean, ignorance and youth and lack of responsibility aside, do you come from a line of entrepreneurs? Are there a lot of people in your family who are similar to you?
uh, not a line of entrepreneurs. My mom is very driven. She was
Hmm.
worked at Chrysler, climbed the corporate ladder, got her doctorate in education at night. So, I
Hmm.
dropped out of college. I went to Brother Rice High School, prep school. I mean, I had a
Hmm.
really good education
Sure.
mixed with sports, mixed with, just some drive
Hmm.
and being in the right time, right place. And then, again, back to Dan Gilbert, being in that environment that was worth
Hmm.
an MBA at Harvard, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Oh my gosh, it's so crazy how when you can go through certain things or be working for certain people and it's just so much experience. Like I was listening in on a call earlier and I was, talking about how like okay, great, you have all these certifications, but like what have you
Yeah,
actually done? It's
right.
the experience that's everything. I mean, even now I laugh sometimes when I see people sharing about applying for different jobs and they say like, oh, they asked me for my college GPA or they asked me for the, and it's like, huh, like
Right.
what about like what I've done for the last 20 years? Like why does that even matter?
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay, from a entrepreneurship perspective, right? It's like a freaking roller coaster.
Yep.
So what was a failure that came along as you've been on this journey that you've like want to share?
Really, you know, it it's kind of your resume is kind of like a tombstone in the
Mhm.
fact that the job begins on one day, or the business, and you exit it or move to another one on another day, but the real life happens in between. So you
Totally.
asked, I'm talking about these exits and making a pro basketball team. Well, you fail every day in that
Yeah.
process from start to end. But this is where the right mindset, the power of community, power of coaches like you that can help you not skip the struggle zone. You're going to
Mhm.
struggle, and whatever you're doing, you try to
Absolutely.
grow, has to be struggle to grow, right?
Mhm.
It's like going to the gym, you break down the muscle,
Mhm.
comes back stronger. I mean, that's the life of an entrepreneur. So really, it's just failing every day, but being able to grow from failure. So
Mhm.
there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are out there and they're like, yeah, I'm grinding every day, I'm in the struggle zone, but they're not. They're just failing because they're not
Mhm.
going in the right direction. You have to have a
Mhm.
strategy, and that's
Yeah.
where like coaches can help you, advisors like, hey, we're here. How do we get to here?
Mhm.
And yes, you're going to fail, but making sure like you're trending in the direction you want to go.
Did you ever have a failure moment that made you want to like quit?
Let's see, what time is it? 3:27. 20 minutes ago. It's every day. I mean, you have to. The way I overcome it is surrounding myself with great people. Number
Mhm.
one, just good, and it's not a quantity of people; it's quality.
Absolutely.
But I'm very
Say that
disciplined
again.
in my morning routine, like
Hmm.
just non-negotiables. You know, I
Hmm.
wake up, I don't have an alarm clock. I wake
Hmm.
up near the same time every day.
Hmm.
Um, and I never go back to sleep. Like,
Yeah. I
you,
know, I'm always amazed by people that can do that, where they're like, "Oh, I woke up at 6 and then I rolled over and then I woke up again and it was 9." And I'm like, "Huh?" Like,
yeah,
I
how
wake
did
up
you
and if
do
I
that?
look at the clock, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And like maybe I'll close my eyes for like 90 seconds and then I'm like, "All right,
Right.
I got to get up."
Yeah. Yeah. And just owning your morning. And, you know, there's
Mhm.
all kinds of talk out there, and the guys like doing these morning routines now that are like, okay, I took a 20-minute ice bath, then I went in the
Right.
infrared sauna, then I meditated, then I prayed, then I walked my kids to school. I'm like, when did
Yeah.
you work? You know, like,
Right,
so
right.
when I started my first business, I didn't have time for all that or the money. Now I'm addicted to the cold plunge every morning.
Mhm.
Uh, but it's just whatever you can commit to, and you can always
Yeah.
add to it. But if you
Mhm.
start with too much of a morning routine, you're going to stop, number one, and then it's
Mhm.
scientifically proven that if you start and stop a routine, you're in a worse place than you were without having done it at all. So
Mhm.
it's, you know,
Consistency is literally king. I
yeah,
I will preach that till like the day that I die, that
yeah,
consistency wins over everything.
for sure.
But one of the things you're talking about is like, yes, it's so funny because now it's a point where I think it's gotten to a point where there's so many things where people are like, I'll do
Yeah,
this for your morning routine, that like people have made jokes about it. And then it's, because it's like 97 things. Like one of my personal goals for 2025, or not necessarily a goal, just more the way that I'm approaching my life, is simplicity.
yeah,
And so I have been, unsubscribing from emails, like unfollowing certain pages, unfollowing different things, because I'm just like, no, like my focus areas are going to be X, Y, and Z. And like,
yeah,
that's it. I'm involved in this community. I'm involved with this group. And like, that is it. Because it's like, I can't, it's so easy to get distracted because we're just all day long. Information is coming at us from every single possible place, and it's like, join this, do this, come with me, and I'll get you here, I'll make you famous,
right,
I'll make you rich, I'll make you all these things. And it's like, oh my God, okay, I can't handle all of this.
right. Yeah, it's too much, too
Yeah.
much. Uh, there's never, there's a lot of talk about 10x growth.
Mm-hmm.
And if people really knew how to 10x everyone's business, like, why would you tell anyone? Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you'd be
Yeah.
living in an island in Fiji.
Yeah.
There really isn't a
Well, it's
short.
like those guys that you see on social media that are like, I'm making, $150,000 a month doing, e-commerce, drop shipping, like, here to take my course and you can do it too. It's like, if I'm making $150,000 a month doing one thing, I don't think I'm going to be selling a course to teach other people to do it. I'm going to be
Right.
investing that money and doing other things, but I don't know,
You know how they're making 150 grand a month?
from selling their
Selling
course.
people, selling,
Totally.
selling people on the course. That's what it
Right?
is.
I'm like, that's what it's got to be. Like, I just
Yeah.
can't believe that, like, this is where you'd want to focus on. But
Right. Yeah.
all right. All right. So we talk a lot about, entrepreneurship on this podcast. Obviously, that's
Yeah.
the whole point. And I love having different people on because I have different people from all over the world, from all types of industry. So given your kind of diverse background of entrepreneurship, like, what made you comfortable jumping around?
It wasn't really jumping around. It's more just finding the right opportunity. So,
Okay.
what is the business? What's the market? What is it going to cost to start? And it wasn't like a science I went through. It's just really instinct and God's favor on my life.
Mhm.
Just meeting the right people at the right time,
Uh-huh.
picking the right industry, and that's how I was able to do it in these in different industries. Like, you know, direct marketing, mortgage was hot. My
Yeah.
mobile technology company was 2008 to 2010. iPhone mobile websites were hot. Uh,
Yeah.
2015, healthcare companies were looking for analytics, looking to scale just the right business. And now uh, I wouldn't, this is um, there's a lot of opportunity in what I'm doing now.
Mhm.
But it's the most difficult thing I've ever done. Number one, trying to build your own personal brand.
Yeah.
And number two, the product there's different ways you can monetize it and spread your influence, right? You got social
Mm-hmm.
media. Okay, should I be on Instagram? Should I be on Facebook? Should I be on LinkedIn? Should I do a
Mm-hmm.
YouTube channel? Should I do a
Yeah.
podcast? Should I do live events? And you can run in a million directions.
Yeah.
And even from what platform should we host our community on? Should we use School or
Right.
Mighty
Yeah.
Networks? Or so it's taken a lot of focus to get to where we are, and we
Mm-hmm.
didn't have a lot of focus in the process.
Mm-hmm.
But now we're, like I said, kind of 2025 dialed in for next year.
Yeah, that's great. So, of the three prior businesses, which one was your favorite?
Um, Definitely not the healthcare company.
Mm-hmm.
So they do decision by committee, and they have
Okay.
very long sales cycles. So I was
Uh-huh.
funding the business personally, and our burn rate got up to like 80, 100,000 a month. And the sales
Oof.
cycle was at least 10 to 12 months. So we'd meet with a
Uh-huh.
company in January. They're like, oh yeah, we're interested. Come back in September and meet with
Mm-hmm.
our committee. I'm like, September,
September.
that's $900,000 of burn rate. We're showing you how to
Yeah.
save millions of dollars. And then by the
Yeah.
time you got to that meeting, the decision maker went to another healthcare plan, and someone else was coming in with a
Mm-hmm.
new analytics company. So that was my least favorite, but I enjoyed the marketing company the most. I mean, the mortgage
Yeah.
market was so hot. Everyone was
Mm-hmm.
buying leads. All your clients loved you. And it was, really
Yeah.
cash flow positive business.
Yeah. So where were you guys in all of these businesses? Are you like the ideas guy and then you found people to be co-founders with, or you would just build a team? Or are you somebody that someone would come to with the idea and then you would do the math and say, hey, this actually looks good?
So my first company, it was my idea.
Mm-hmm.
I worked for Dan Gilbert in high school as a mortgage company.
Mm-hmm.
We worked in the call center, so I was familiar with
Oh,
leads,
wow.
and
Okay. Mm-hmm.
and so it just kind of made sense to start that. Uh, and then my mobile technology company, um, I met a guy that was developing iPhone apps, and he's like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" So
Mm-hmm.
the first one was me, and then the others were kind of more people like, "Hey, you've done this before, help me out."
Got it.
And a lot of times, engineers and product builders, they can't get out of their own way.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a visionary, take action, and then
Mm-hmm.
figure it out kind of guy.
Yeah. Yep, I totally can relate to that because I've had conversations with the engineering guys and the product guys, and you're kind of like, okay, but like, are you looking at the business holistically? And how are we going to
Right.
go? How are we going to get from here to here? And
Yeah.
you're doing this and you're doing it really, really, really well. But like, you shouldn't be doing these other tasks that you could delegate and you could outsource and
Yeah.
those types of things to really like get moving and make some cash.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So, okay, I still feel like I'm curious more about like you as a person. So, you mentioned that you've had like a give first mentality, which I think is fantastic and a very common theme between entrepreneurs. But like where does that come from? Like what is it that's like down in you that makes you have that outlook on life?
Let's see. My grandfather, he was in World War II, fireman, postman,
Okay.
and he was raised by his dad passed away when he was 10, so a single mom with like 10 kids on welfare.
Dang.
And first of all, I don't know, I can't do that with $5 million, let alone being on welfare with 10 kids. But I was just kind of raised to
Uh-oh.
appreciate the value of
We
money, hard
froze.
work, and helping other people. And so it's just kind of
Uh-huh.
ingrained in me in my upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And going to Brother Rice, right? We served in the community. We're a faith-based
Mm-hmm.
family, church, mission trips, so it's just kind of
Mm-hmm.
been my upbringing, and I've transferred that
Yeah.
into entrepreneurship.
Okay. So 10 kids.
He had 10. Yeah,
So,
my
so
great grandma
you're
had 10. No, I didn't
dang.
have 10. My
No, I
mom,
know you don't have you're okay. So it was
my grandfather.
your grandfather. Oh my God. That is so insane to me and
Yeah,
how like families like that made it work. I mean, my dad is one of six
yeah,
and he was raised in a just tiny, tiny town in New Jersey, like outside of Philadelphia. And
yeah.
there was like, I think he said it was like a 3-bedroom house with 1 bathroom. I'm like, you shared 8 people shared 1 bathroom. Like, that's nothing. I can't even imagine. Like
No,
nothing sounds less enjoyable.
no, especially a bathroom. It's like,
Yeah. And could you just imagine like someone's always wanting to get in there? Like you just have no privacy whatsoever.
no, not one person. You got six people waiting.
Yeah, there's just a line. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. That's great. That's great. So, okay, let's talk more about, entrepreneurship as a whole. And, there's so many people out there like doing things and coming up with ideas and, putting themselves out there. And so what do you think that the most important things that people really need to think about when they're going off and starting a venture?
Um, the first thing I do when people come to me with a business idea is I try to
Mhm.
talk them out of it. 'Cause I want to
Okay.
see how convinced they really are.
Yeah.
So we've developed this framework called the simple framework, right? The S stands for
Mhm.
strategy, I innovation, test, fail,
Mhm.
learn, grow. And the M stands for mindset. And a lot
Mhm.
of people, when you start a business, you have all these big dreams, right? But those
Yeah.
dreams are going to meet reality
Yeah,
very
exactly.
quickly. And
Yeah.
9 out of 10 startups fail. So I want to see how bought in, even if I like the concept, I'll
Mhm.
push back and
Mhm.
say, no, I don't think, see if they'll actually come back and they're really bought
Yeah.
in. No, trying to convince me it's a good idea. So um, it's really just, finding something you're passionate about. If you don't love it, you're going to,
Mhm.
when those dreams meet reality, you're done. And that's why nine
Yeah.
out of 10 fail.
That is such a crazy statistic.
Yeah.
I just like it's so wild because you see people out there like every day like grinding things out and trying to figure things out. And I think like the passion is so important, but I think that it can be like a blessing. Like it's a double-edged sword. So it's like, when one of the things that I've seen in working with startups is that, people can become so emotionally invested in what it
Right.
is that they're doing that they can't see like what the data is actually showing them and what's
Right.
right in front of them in order to either pivot completely or to make some major changes in the overall, what they're putting out into the world, what their product is, who their ICP is, all of those things where it's like it's like, hey, like take like look at what this is telling you because
Right.
you're so passionate, but you're so emotionally tied to this like baby that is your business that and I get it. If like 9 out of 10 fail, it's because I think that plays a major role.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, here's some questions that I've come up with about business in general. So, what is one belief or rule about business that you feel like you've completely abandoned since starting out in this?
Um, smart decisions. No, I'm kidding. What have I abandoned since I've started? Since I've started what? Like started being an entrepreneur?
Well, I mean, you've been on such a long path, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's not many people that, I mean, I don't feel like I've talked to people who have had a lot of different businesses, but I feel like
Hmm.
you have an interesting path because you did start so young.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that you had, any belief that you had when you very first started out that you feel like now is like completely counter and to being successful?
I don't think so. I mean, I've been pretty consistent, right? Find an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity, uh, give it everything you have,
Mm-hmm.
never quit, and knowing when to sell,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some
Yeah. Yeah.
people
That's
get
huge.
greedy and don't know when to exit. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, the terrible statement of, bird in the hand's worth two in the bush. I couldn't think of a better one. I sound like a grandfather.
I know.
Um, so bad, but it just came to mind. So, I just, you gotta, and there's isn't really a science to it, but just recognizing opportunity and taking the most advantage of it.
In any of your businesses, have you guys raised capital or have you always been self-funded?
No. So my first business, super cash heavy. I didn't even know how to raise capital. I didn't even know you could.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then in my second business, I brought in a member in our community, Bill Joel. He's,
Mm-hmm. Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, Bill. He's actually on our team. He's our chief operating officer. So he's been my
Mm-hmm.
partner now since 2009 in each of the
Mm-hmm.
following businesses. But he's like, we were burning, 80, 100 grand a month. He's like, this is a
That's
great business. You could probably get people to invest in it.
mm-hmm.
So he put together an investment deck, presentation, financial model, and got a couple investors. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
Gave up 10% of my company, but I'm not the one paying the bills every day. We've got capital and cash. So
Yeah.
raising capital allows you to do more faster. And people always worry about giving up equity. To me, I'd rather have a smaller piece of a bigger pie than own a
Yeah.
bunch of nothing. Because people, when they invest in your business, they also want to help you grow because now their
Definitely.
money's in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So raising capital just kind of spreads the wealth, but it also spreads
Yeah.
the risk and opens up new opportunity.
Well, and it's got to give you a little confidence boost too when somebody is willing to invest in you, because then it's like, hey, okay, like someone else like believes that like we're doing something right too.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So now in this age of, personal brand building, right? You'd mentioned that you thought that like that was one of the hardest things that you've ever done. And I am in full agreement with that because, you'd open up LinkedIn every day and you
Yeah.
see, I mean, I know that I know that there's an algorithm in there that's feeding me different people and different things all day long outside of my actual connections. But I feel like all day long, I'm just inundated with people who have become like personal brand experts overnight, and they tell this story of like, oh my gosh, I started posting 90 days ago and I
Right.
had 500 followers and now I have 36,000, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, okay, that's amazing, but like
Right.
everyone's an expert now. So how do you feel, like what has been your journey in this, and what have you done right, and what have you feel like you've learned from?
As with anything, I talk about you have to test, fail, learn, and grow. What a
Mhm.
lot of people do is the first two. They test and fail, but they don't learn. Right.
Mhm.
So we started on Instagram, we tested, we failed, and then started to think about like, well, is someone I want to work with or joining our community going to be on Instagram, number one, in
Mhm.
that mindset? And
Mhm.
two, how do I get seen on Instagram? Right.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
can spend money on ads and buy fake followers and boost
Yeah.
posts, like,
Oh my God, the
all
fake
that stuff.
followers drives
Yeah.
me bananas because it's so obvious. Like I got the collaboration tag in a post one time and I accepted it, and then within like 2 minutes it was just like brrr, like all the and it was all these
Right.
people had liked the post, and I'm like, no, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
Like,
And then you get penalized by the algorithm and all that.
yeah,
And then do I post 2 times a day, 3 times a day, once a
yeah.
week, and it's really good? So Instagram just didn't work for us.
Mhm.
LinkedIn, I tried a lot of different things.
Mhm.
I tried posting about my company. I tried creating these incredible Steven Spielberg like videos, and I got 3
Steven
likes,
Spielberg. Oh
right?
gosh. Yeah.
And then I got connected with Michael from our team in May, and he was like, if you don't like, I think he said, I'll do it for $5,000. If you don't like what I do, I'll give you 6,000 back. And I was just like, I've
Mhm.
never heard an offer like this. So
Yeah,
we got
right?
connected, and I started following his strategy, and my
Uh-huh.
LinkedIn analytics look like Mount Everest from
That's
June
so
to
cool.
December. And
Uh-huh.
so now I'm just laser focused on LinkedIn, try to post
Uh-huh.
twice a day. I was outsourcing it to someone else before, and it's
Mhm.
really tough to outsource who you are,
Yeah. It
right?
totally is. Yeah, because
Yeah,
people don't sound like you, they don't talk like you, they don't respond like you.
right. And so it's a commitment, but
Mhm.
the return on investment has been incredible. So I spend probably an hour and a half a day on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, but it's been the best return on my time since we've
Mhm.
started the community.
That's awesome. So, what do you feel like your secret sauce is? Because I feel like it's a little bit different for everybody. So, do you post and then kind of like hang around to answer the comments that come in immediately, or do you just post and then maybe at like say at 7:30 after dinner or something, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go heads down in here.
No, you want to catch people while they're there. So think
Okay.
about the type of people you want to engage with. When are they
Mm-hmm.
on LinkedIn? Because I
Mm-hmm.
used to do that too, like post in the morning and then check my comments at night. But
Mm-hmm.
someone would comment, that means they're engaging with your
They're
post. You
engaging.
want to
Yeah.
be there, and then you may get 3 or 4 comments. So the algorithm, it's not about likes, it's about
Mm-hmm.
comments and attention. So you want to
Yeah.
be there when they're there.
Mm-hmm.
So between 7 and 9 a.m. Eastern time, I'll like pop on at 7, engage with some other people's posts, throw
Mm-hmm.
mine up, stay on for 30, 45 minutes. And then I'll
Mm-hmm.
do the same thing about 8 o'clock at night.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm with you on the catching a comment as it's coming through and responding. I try really hard to do that as well. Um, I just, it's just such an interesting, that everything is just so interesting, like with something that I feel resonates with something that doesn't. And then, you get people liking things but not commenting, and then you're like, okay, if you liked it, like, don't you have anything to say? And I mean, I'm just like, it's an interesting world out there. But I will say
Yeah.
I've learned quite a bit from being on LinkedIn, and I'm really enjoying it as a social platform. Whereas, like, even as recent as like 2 years ago, I just thought like, oh, it's just for, you go on there when you're looking for a new job.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not, it's, it's a giant networking platform. It's
Hmm.
like going to but you have to treat it like going to a cocktail party, right?
Yeah.
If I meet you at a cocktail party, the first thing I'm not going to do is hand you my business card or tell
Yeah.
you about my new product. Like, I
Right.
want to get
Right.
to know you. Hey, how's it going? Like, that's, you have to treat it like that. So if you're spamming people in their in-mail or just
Oh,
posting about your
right.
business, no one cares about your product. They don't care about business. They want to get to
Yeah.
know you, how you
Hmm.
think, your thoughts on industry or leadership. So just
Hmm.
being authentic and building relationships is what LinkedIn is for.
Yeah. I think that the AI piece of it has gotten a little out of control. Like, even when I was on your podcast, you had, written about the event, because because you do yours live, and you
Yeah.
had written about the event. And so you had written about that I was going to be on there. And so it was a little summary about me. Well, there was some comment where it was almost like somebody is like, they read the text and almost like regurgitated it back, and I was like, I don't even know who this person is. Like, this
Right.
is such a weird
Yeah.
comment. And then I was like, oh, that must have been AI. And the amount of AI that I get in my DMs where, it's like, oh, hey, I know this is really random, but you seem like the perfect person to ask. Like,
Right.
and then they go on to say, like, I noticed you're using some software that I'm definitely not using, so I'm definitely not the perfect person to ask. I'm like, come on.
My favorite is I think we have some mutuals in common. When
uh,
people say that, I'm like, I have 12,000 connections, like
yeah,
6
yeah.
degrees of separation. Yeah, we know everyone in the world between the two of us. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so that's not a good strategy. You don't need 10,000 connections. If you know 500 people insanely
Mhm.
well, you can build a great
Yeah,
business, great community. And that's
absolutely.
why I do love the House of Bricks community, because it
Mhm.
is a concentrated place of like-minded people on the same frequency, trying to build and grow. We don't care if you work at a gas station or you're the CEO of Apple. It's just
Yeah.
like-minded growth people, because they all have something they can teach each other. So um, I want to thank you for having me as a guest. I know I'm not supposed to end the show. I do have another show coming up. So uh,
Don't worry, I was literally about to end it, so
yeah,
you're fine.
I'm
That's
closing out
never
your
happened
podcast.
before.
Yeah,
That was great. Thank you. Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Adam. And why don't you tell everyone how they can get in touch and learn more about you and the House of Bricks?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, and I appreciate you joining our community. You're going to be a great addition. If you
Thank
want
you.
to learn more about the House of Bricks, you can find me on LinkedIn, Adam House Senior, or go to houseofbricks.io. But find us on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you personally. And thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening and watching. And as always, please remember to like, comment, share, subscribe, all of the good things. And we will see you next week.